The City of Witches, Episode 36, The Iron Coup. It all began some time before Lily moved to the fairy realm, back when West Moonwing Island was still ruled by President Easy. One day, two fairies met in a cafe at the outskirts of the capital. At the first glance, it was nothing out of the ordinary. However, if one knew the shape of the criminal underworld of West Moonwing Island, they would easily guess that the guests at the cafe were two fairy mafia bosses, Hisha Omiak and Koti Nishvanat, and that if they met in one place, that can't mean anything good. Indeed, that day was one of such occasions. Welcome, my friend Hisha, Nishvanat greeted his partner. Wonderful day we have, don't we? Said Omiak. All right. I know you well. I know that we haven't come here to talk about what a wonderful day it is, said Nishvanat. My man, said Omiak. Indeed, I have a very interesting plan, and I would like you to help me. Your very interesting seems to be my crazy, but sure, please share the details, said Nishvanat. Omiak got into a conspiratorial tone. I want to snatch the rule from President Easy. And I don't mean democracy, I mean brute force. I was not mistaken that it's going to be crazy, said Nishvanat. How in all the worlds do you want to do it? Easy, my friend. I have an army, and you have an army. Alone we shall be crushed, but together we can crush Easy. Need I say more? Said Omiak. Nishvanat still looked not that convinced. And what will I get from helping you in your little coup? Don't worry, my friend. I thought about mutual benefit, said Omiak and pulled out two maps. One of the maps was a map of West Moonwing Island. It was crossed through the middle in a way that divided the island in two halves. Not equal, however, because the line was drawn through the capital that was a little bit to the north from the center. The other map was a map of the capital, this time divided in perfect halves. Here's my idea. If the coup is successful, we'll divide the country between us, said Omiak. What do you think? Nishvanat saw some potential in Omiak's plan. His men could provide some firepower, but it was really as foolproof as Omiak claimed. I'm not saying no yet, but I'll have to think it over, said Nishvanat. How about we continue this talk over a phone? Of course, take as long as you need. I'll be glad if you make sure you want to help me. Omiak seemed satisfied. I can't wait to hear back from you. Just after that, Lily was saying goodbye to her sister and getting ready to cross the barrier between the realms. She has become a fairy, was about to move to the fairy realm. She has waited for this moment ever since she learned she could become a fairy. And her dream was just about to become true. She, of course, had no idea what was going on in West Moonwing Island at the time. Next day, Koti Nishvanat phoned Hisha Omiak about his plans for the coup. He liked the idea more and more, but he wanted to go over some details. So what you suggest is that we mobilize our armies and strike the president's office, said Nishvanat. Precisely, said Omiak. Have you trained your men for fights in buildings? Yes, we care about close quarter combat a lot, said Nishvanat. Then we'll make it through, said Omiak. When do we attack? Asked Nishvanat. This fire day, Easy will hold a citizenship ceremony. My people will have analyzed the formation they used to defend them. I suggest we strike that day, said Omiak. Are you sure? Asked Nishvanat. President Easy has very competent security officers. Don't worry, with my expert's analysis, strategic planning, and a bit of training will make us unstoppable, said Omiak. So, what do you say, my friend? Would you like to rule a half of our beautiful country? Nishvanat liked the plan more and more. He was convinced that he should support Omiak. He just took one last glance at the map. Sounds wonderful. I'll take the south. The next day was unusual in that there was next to no mafia activity. Sure, smaller gangs were doing business as usual, but nothing was heard from the greatest players. Omiak and Nishvanat seemed to have disappeared. The truth, however, was that they were training their armies for the greatest operation in fairy mafia history. All they had, all the reason to train them. Overthrowing the government is not an easy task. While the streets were happy about their silence, there was a lot of noise coming from the mafia headquarters. Training commands were the only thing interrupting the shots of training weapons. And soon the operation day came. President Easy was finishing reciting the ceremonial speech and giving Lily her citizenship. More and more of them, and they were getting. So when suddenly there came shots, there was more and more of them, and they were getting closer and closer. There was security service present, but its officers seemed helpless. The building was taken over by panic and chaos. Suddenly, the shooters entered the ceremony room. Shots were fired. Lily closed her eyes. Shots stopped. And when Lily opened her eyes, she saw President Easy, dead at her feet. Omiak stepped forward and laughed at Easy's body. His plan of destroying the government of West Monwing Island was fulfilled. Nothing stood in his way to take over the country. "Get the transmission ready," said Omiak to his men. As they scattered to look for transmission equipment, Omiak noticed Lily. She had to be the one undergoing the ceremony. He thought he might use her as well. Lily noticed the murderer walking to her and smiling. "Pinto Liti?" Omiak asked Lily. Lily had no idea why the murderer of the president would want to know where she is from, but she wasn't trying to ask. "From England." "The human realm?" Omiak asked. "Yes." "Wonderful. You will be my translator." "Kanimfelli Omiak, you're live," said the fairy soldier with the camera. Omiak turned around. He smiled into the camera's lens and gave a speech. "People of West Monwing Island, as you might soon notice, there was a small change of rule. President Easy is currently incapable of fulfilling his duties." The camera showed Easy's body. "Therefore, the country shall now be divided into two zones, with the border going through our capital. The ruler of the South Zone will be Koti Nishvanat, and I, Hisha Omiak, will rule the North Zone. I am certain that we have now entered a brave new era in our history." The whole nation was shook to its core. Uncertain times have come. The events of that evening became known as the Iron Coup. As anybody could have predicted, the mafia's rule made the nation a dangerous place. It started quiet. Small mafias have been suspended. Their members were given a simple choice. Either they would join the armies of Omiak and Nishvanat, or they would get imprisoned. Their leaders have been given a similar choice, but instead of prison, there was death. Some people like that the problems with the mafias got solved, but only for a moment. Soon, taxation skyrocketed, and the methods of enforcing taxes were even more brutal than before. The ruling mafias were unpunished, and they showed it in how the citizens were treated. Then military aid came from East Monwing Island. The soldiers were supposed to free the nation from mafia, but they were completely decimated after a long and draining battle. After that loss and protests from citizens, East Monwing Island stopped trying to free the West, and its fate was once again looking dark. For a while, nothing new was happening, but total control corrupts, and both Omiak and Nishvanat came to want to control the entire country. Soon it was sure that a civil war will erupt between the North and the South. It started with both armies performing espionage on each other. Then a high barbed fence was built through the country, the ultimate symbol of division of the country, not only of land, but of people, friends, and families. The country ultimately fell into despair. But of course, it was not the end of escalation of tension. The final proof of a coming war was the beginning of an arms race. Both armies wanted to have unstoppable weapons. They were building more and more destructive machines, and there was no doubt that they wanted to use them. It was not a matter of if, but rather a matter of when and what. The culmination came when Omiyak's army built a powerful cannon that could turn the enemy's magic against them. Truly an opus magnum of the arms industry. It was named Kalinimia Anpesen, Sunset of the Gods. It was, however, just as much a symbol of terror as it was a symbol of hope. Sunset of the Gods had a flaw. If it was overloaded, it risked blowing up as soon as the trigger was pulled. The engineers hid this flaw. They hoped that it could bring the end to the rule of the Mafia. They risked it would be another tool of control, but they knew there was a chance that it will bring calm times again. It was not guaranteed, but after long debates, the engineers decided it was a risk worth taking. They didn't lose hope even when Sunset of the Gods was stolen by Nishvanat's army. For them, it made no difference who would pull the unlucky trigger. So yeah, that's basically what happened, said Lily, munching on her chip. Okay, no wonder you wanted to hide this from Ursula, said Sarah. I am still kind of mad, you know, Ursula said. But at least we can be glad that you are safe. It doesn't seem you have anything to worry about in here, for now, said Giovanna. Speaking of, I'll live with you for a while, okay? Said Lily. Just until the chaos dies down a little and it's safe to go back to the fairy realm. Dang, I myself would like a fairy roommate. Would make some gigs easier, said Angelo. Me too. I bet I could learn a lot of magic from one, said Sarah. Of course you can, said Ursula. Although you better think about how you will explain that to our parents. Oh, don't worry about that. I'll find some way, said Lily.